Sadhguru was in London for a few days last week, and on Sunday we had a darshan with him. Now, the first time that I sat with Sadhguru was in April 2017. So it's been just over 8 years. And in that time, we have seen him become a worldwide celebrity. So as I've been marinating after the darshan on Sunday, I've really been sensing into and contemplating this question of what is it? What does it feel like to have a celebrity guru? Well, it's complicated. So, in preparing for Sunday, my preparation actually started the evening before. And it felt very different. So in the past, I know that there was a lot of excitement. I would have had a lot of excitement and a lot of energy of anticipation before being with him. But this time felt very different. So the evening before, I deliberately had a very calm couple of hours before going to sleep, and I started tuning into him. So when I woke up on Sunday morning, I was in a very empty kind of space, which was very conducive actually, and it allowed me to sense into my body and my intuition about how to leave, what time to leave. I didn't have breakfast in the end. I was planning to have breakfast, but actually, as it turned out, I didn't. So I was on an empty stomach condition when we were with him. So, and that wasn't a requirement, but it is always better to be on an empty stomach when you are sitting with the guru because you're more receptive, as we know. So that was just very interesting to observe that this tuning in quietly from the evening before put me in a very receptive state. And arriving, the volunteers were wonderful, the atmosphere was really beautiful, and it was very gentle, and the whole thing flowed extremely beautifully. I remained in my own cocoon of energy the whole time. And like I say, I was in a very receptive kind of state. I said that it's complicated because, as we have seen over the last few years, Sadhguru has made the very clear choice to make spirituality available to as many people as possible. You would have heard this idea of one drop of spirituality for everyone. So that's a very specific direction that he has chosen to go in. And of course, it requires a stepping down and a stepping out. So because of that, we've seen him hanging out with, slightly questionable celebrities and even more questionable people in politics. Of course, because that is what is required when you are doing this kind of public service. But what it means is that as someone who is really just interested in him as a guru, and who is only interested then in the sadhana and in the experience of him, now we have to navigate a whole series of other layers of energy and conversation. So it requires a lot more discernment. And even on Sunday, even though it was a closed group in the sense that the session was only open to those who had completed Shambhavi. So in that sense, it was a closed group. But still, he spent a lot of the time, talking and joking and kind of being at this sort of more superficial level. I can't think of any other word for it, in the sense that it was entertainment. There's a lot more entertainment going on. The sort of Shankar and Pillai style of jokes and just the layer and the level of the conversation was a lot more entertainment before we got into an actual practice for really a very brief period of time. So this is the piece that I find very challenging and very difficult. And the way that I've found so far to navigate it is to tune in very specifically to the layer of his presence that I want to access. And we've heard him say so many times, just be with me, just be with me, just be with me. So every single time that I have the opportunity to be in his presence, that's the thing that I remember, and that is the sole intention that I go in with. In fact, even thinking back to that very first time that I sat with him in April 2017, it was actually my initiation into Shambhavi, and he conducted the program. Honestly, I didn't even care about the practice. I had no interest in the practice. I had no interest in inner engineering. I knew that I just needed to be in the presence of this being. So right from then, that has been kind of my guiding star. And over time, as he has become more famous, and I'm thinking of the last time he was in London was for the Save Soil launch, the very beginning of that whole journey. And that was a very different experience. That was much more the circus. That was much more the show. We were launching this big movement. It was a very, very different ball game. But even there, my core intention really was just to be with him. And that instruction from him has always stayed with me. And it does help me to navigate these quite turbulent layers. I think we do go through different phases of relating to the guru. And this applies whoever your guru is. It doesn't matter who they are. I think we all go through different phases of relating to them because, remember, their role is to guide us towards our own enlightenment and to nurture our own spiritual development. And I think that for me, the relationship with the guru is both the most personal and the most impersonal relationship there is, because it's not actually about the person, it's not about the personality, it's not about who they are as an individual. But at the same time, I don't think that it's just about the guru tattva, right? Because each guru does have their own rasa, they have their own flavor, they have their own bhava, their own mood that infuses their teaching. So really, we do have to navigate that relationship, and it is a relationship. So, this is something that I don't see anybody talking about. You know, there's a lot of material on Guru Bhakti, there's the Guru Paduka Stotram, there's Guru Puja, there's plenty of material in the tradition about how to honor the Guru, but really nobody talks about the very human aspect that we are all having to navigate. In my experience, we do go through different phases. So for me, when I first came across Sadhguru, actually, it was on YouTube, and I kept seeing this advert for inner engineering, and it just annoyed the hell out of me. I had no interest whatsoever. And frankly, if the thumbnail had said Shambhavi Mahamudra, I would have been much more interested. Because actually, I've only ever been interested in that. I'm not interested in the flashy language. I understand it, and this speaks into the complex fact of his celebrity and, you know, trying to step out and step down, very necessary. But if, like me, you're actually only interested in the real thing, it can be quite confusing. And if not confusing, it is something that you have to navigate. So I came in just very clear on what I was interested in. And the whole motorbike, you know, all of that, there was definitely a period of time when that served a purpose for me. Even though it's not something I found particularly interesting, it wasn't something I was particularly drawn to. I mean, it's a motorbike. But obviously there was a character there was personality, there was this charisma. And so for a period of time, that definitely kept my mind engaged. I was able to watch everything on YouTube and kind of be invested in that way. But then at some point, I definitely grew out of that. So as your sadhana matures, and as you become more connected, I think, on an energetic level, the personality falls away. But at the same time, there is still this human relationship. So when I think about, you know, that year that shall not be named, when we were all locked up at home, and Sadhguru was doing these daily darshans, which were fantastic. But then after that, he went off motorbiking across America, I think. And I do remember feeling kind of abandoned and thinking, oh, well, it's all very well for you going off gallivanting across the road on your motorbike while I'm still stuck here at home. So again, there is this thing to navigate, and it involves frustration and it involves feeling abandoned, and you have to keep coming home to yourself. So that's why I say that for me, it's the most personal and the most impersonal kind of relationship that there is, because what is offered is so precious, and it's offered out of deep generosity and grace. But at the same time, there's this distance. And I think that as a shishya, actually part of our practice is learning how to navigate that distance. The other big lesson I think that I have learned is about taking responsibility, because the guru can give a lot, but ultimately we are responsible for our own lives. And I've been very fortunate from the time that I was very, very young. I've been in the company of many different teachers and gurus, many wonderful beings, and I have seen a lot of others, particularly elders and people from older generations. I have seen them, how they are with the guru, and I've observed a lot of people who have so much devotion, but they also become helpless. They kind of expect the guru to do everything and to sort out their life. And I notice that sometimes in myself, that feeling can come up, that sort of desire that, oh, let Sadhguru take care of everything. But that is not how it is. And in fact, even if we think about the purpose of yoga and the purpose of all of these knowledge systems, it is to make us highly capable, highly skilled, highly potent human beings. And that, of course, means being responsible for your life, because the more skilled you are, the more you will naturally take responsibility. So I think this piece about having the guru there, but remembering that you have to be at the center of your own life. Again, I don't see anybody talking about this, but it's something that I have had to navigate. I'm continuing to navigate. And what I know for sure is now I have to take responsibility fully. That's what I know now for sure. And I think in that sense, the guru can be a mirror sometimes. So coming back to the motorbike and, you know, the helicopters and all of these wonderful things, which personally, I have never had a problem with Sadhguru's helicopters and the celebrity and who he's hanging out with. I think it's fantastic. But then I don't have a problem with celebrity. So I guess for me, that's always going to be fine. But I do remember one time when I was in the ashram. This would have been a couple of years ago. One winter, I was in the ashram, and he was definitely around, because I remember I was doing some practice. We were doing a practice, and I heard the damn helicopter, and I got really irritated, because what came up for me, where my mind went to, was, well, it's fine for you flying around in your helicopter, but I'm struggling. I was having a really rough time at that particular point. So reflecting on that, I think the guru is a mirror in many ways, coming back to the, you know, I said earlier, there are many different layers to this. And one layer is that they are a mirror. So the invitation then is to ask the question, well, what is it that I see in him that I wish to have for myself? And then take responsibility for creating that.